Here's a little Sasquatch video for you guys. I'm gonna do Sasquatch videos and a bunch of other type of videos. Maybe aliens, maybe near-death experiences, which I've kind of become a near-death experience researcher, whatever that means. And I'm gonna start expanding and talking about all sorts of stuff. I'm probably even gonna start talking about religion once in a while and science and you know, I'm interested in pharmacology. I'm super interested in neurotransmitters and neuroreceptors, and I'm learning about that right now. And so I'm going to talk about all that. I'm going to talk about my addiction, my drug addictions. Going to talk about just shit that I think is good and important for the next 2 weeks, and then I'll probably go back to not doing it. So I'm going to go on a drive, really a vacation, but my wife doesn't want to come. She doesn't want to come. I'm going to go to the Pacific Northwest because I always beg her about, or I nag her about going on a family vacation to Oregon, because Northern California and Oregon are my favorite places. I love the green. I love the humidity. I just love the coastal, the deep, thick forest. It just feels like Scotland. I love it, man. It's something about, it just heals me. I just need it. I really wish that I could live in the Pacific Northwest, but my wife, that's not gonna be a possibility. She wants to stay with her family. She always wants to stay right near her family. So anyway, nagged her enough, and she's like, you know what? Just go. And I'm like, no, I won't. No, she's like, seriously, I want you to go. I want you to have this experience. She took a week off work, and we had made all these plans, and then I'm going to go. I'm just going to go because it's fun, and I want to experience it, and I want to kind of YouTube the whole thing and talk about stuff or whatever. But I will give you a little Sasquatch video right now. You know, Sasquatch exists. That's kind of been the something that I think is interesting enough to talk about publicly, that Sasquatch exists, and not many people out there are saying that, and so it's kind of fun. It's also embarrassing to talk about it publicly, but it's kind of fun. It's just such a bizarre thing that nobody understands, I'm attracted to little niches like that. I'm attracted to little niches where people don't really understand, like dark areas people don't understand, and I like to illuminate them. And like, I don't know if it's a pride thing, if I like to wow people with knowledge or something. I don't know what it is, but I like doing it. I like figuring weird crap out, you know, and then explaining it to people. I like that. There's something about that just like gets me. And Sasquatch exists. You know, that's weird because everything you hear about Sasquatch is so stupid, and all you know about Sasquatch, you have no idea that there's a serious side to Sasquatch. All you know is just Hollywood, you know, just like Harry and the Hendersons, Sasquatch being, you know, Sasquatch being stupid. The lighting is not better out here. Okay. All you know is just like Sasquatch is just a cultural stupid thing, you know? You don't know the hundreds of Native American cultures kind of surrounding Sasquatch, or the traditions, or the thousands of years of natives regarding Sasquatch as a real creature. Hundreds and hundreds of tribes having traditions, and over 500 different names for Sasquatch. And you have no idea that the slave colonies, when they in the South, independent of Native Americans and the European colonizers, they were an independent culture. They also themselves had Sasquatch experiences, along with the Pilgrims, along with every group, and then isolated accounts in different states that totally have nothing to do, and just interesting. So the point is, I don't really care about convincing people that something like this is real, because I think that what you should do is be, you gotta be freaking skeptical. I mean, if you believed me that Sasquatch was real right off the bat, that would be a problem, because you shouldn't just believe something without evidence. And this is an extraordinary claim. But here's the weird thing. This is why the topic is so freaking weird. this is an extraordinary claim that does not really have extraordinary evidence. And yet it is still, well, it doesn't have extraordinary scientific evidence. It doesn't have empirical scientific evidence. There's interesting evidence, but even that evidence is hard to understand. But if you, and I have no idea how Sasquatch works. I have no idea what they eat, how they live. I really know nothing about them. I have had sightings. I've had encounters with them. I've had things thrown at me and all sorts of stuff. I found prints, and there have been times when I'm like, is half of this my imagination? And I was on Adderall at the time, so I've thought, well, maybe I'm kind of high on Adderall, and somehow this is some kind of weird, convincing hallucination, But the thing about life is that when you go down these rabbit holes and you really start researching a lot, the more you research, the clearer things get. Pretty much that's just a general rule in life for anything. The more holistic your approach is, you got to research the opposing argument. You got to research. So Bigfoot believers, Bigfoot non-believers. What do the critics say? What are the hoaxers? What are the real hoaxes? What are not? Blah 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 blah. You have to research the whole thing and get into. There's interesting publications by actual scientists on this, and just a few, very few of them, but interesting stuff, And when you research that, it's enough that you're like, okay, well, this definitely isn't something stupid. You research and you've read, at this point, you're gonna read probably hundreds at least of sighting, listen to them on podcasts or read about them. You got to ingest lots and lots of eyewitness accounts before you start to realize, okay, there's something at least here, even if it's like a mental illness. There's something here. And then you get into it and you research. And usually when you do that with a topic, if it's stupid, it does fall apart. Flat Earth falls apart. If you pursue any one of Flat Earthers' arguments, any single one of a Flat Earthers' arguments, every single one is absolutely objectively falsifiable. You can't pursue any single one of them without it becoming false, Sasquatch is frustrating because it's like, sorry about the kids in the background, guys. Hey guys, can you be quiet because Daddy's on the phone, okay? I love you so much. They're not gonna be quiet. Sasquatch is interesting because you can research it and it has documentary evidence and logical evidence and prima facie evidence or whatever, but it doesn't have empirical evidence. It doesn't have empirical scientific evidence. And yet, here's the weird thing about it. You can go out into the woods and you can learn how to actually go and to have a Sasquatch experience, and then you'll go and you will have a Sasquatch experience, or you won't. Maybe it might take a couple times. You got to go to the right places, and you got to kind of do some right things. Like a few of us have discovered just a couple things that work. Like nobody knows anything about this, but there's a couple things that kind of tend to lead to a little bit of near type encounters with Sasquatch. And maybe if there's a bizarre mistake, or if you spend tons and tons of time out there, you'll actually have a sighting, which is a very bizarre experience in and of itself. And let me tell you, I have had a Sasquatch sighting. I've had several, and let me tell you what they're like, because they're real. They're physical. I've seen footprints and everything. They're somehow physical, and yet they're really freaking weird too. I've seen some just weird stuff. And now again, that seems like a cop-out because it seems like, well, it's a magic unicorn and it just disappears. Like, it seems like we realize that Sasquatch isn't real, so we retreat back to this magical stance where, oh, it was real, but it's just mystical. No, actually, but that's actually not what's going on at all. Certainly, there's actually something hairy upright onto certainly that is all happening. There is a hairy man-like thing, some sort of primate or whatever, or very, very evolved primate, primitive man, relic hominid. Something is happening there. How it behaves is a totally different story. It doesn't behave like any other normal animal or leave any type of traceable bio footprint. Like it's not really stealing animals from the forest or eating the vegetation, but there are stories where it does do those types of things. But the type of things that I've experienced those physical things like eating apples, like stealing your apples or something, and rocks being thrown at me. And like I said, I've experienced in sightings, but I've also experienced very, very odd things that the science. I would love to go on science here, but when you have a personal experience, you also, unfortunately, you're just left with your own subjective evidence, not the science. Should you doubt your own subjective experience? Of course you should. But once it's like pretty stark and you've had it several times and it's, you know it's not real, or it's not, you're high on Adderall and that's why you're having it. You start to say, okay, I love science, I want science, but unfortunately the science is not here for good reason, because it doesn't have physical empirical evidence. There's no reason for an accredited scientist to pursue this. And there's social consequences for them, So scientists shouldn't really be involved in this, really, because it doesn't jive with science very well, this phenomenon, for some reason. And yet it's totally legitimate, and I have had my own experiences, which of course are subjective. I'm not going to deny that they are subjective. At times in the past, telling about these experiences or trying to film them or something, I have been scared that maybe I don't know, I've just questioned everything. Is this really happening? But after you actually have a physical sighting, then it becomes, okay, I really do need to be serious about this. And I really do need to say, okay, I'm gonna say that this thing is real. I know it's real. It sounds weird to say, I know it's real. It sounds like a religious thing, but you've had a sighting, so what do you do? It wasn't a human. It was way hyper fast. It was moving too fast for this plane. Like, things in normal nature don't move that fast. It's like there was no wind drag or something. Like, it was, the one that I saw was squatting up and down. Well, I'll just talk about this particular sighting I had. This young-looking Sasquatch looked like a 5-year-old, but my boy is 5 years old. It looked exactly as big as him. Just little 5, 6, 7-year-old boy, thin, just like a human, but a pokey little head. Not. It didn't come to a crisp cone, but it kind of came like Bert and Ernie. Which one has the long head and like puffy on top? Longer, more protruding chin. It seemed much shorter neck, like this. Boxy shoulders. I saw the armpits, the wrists, the hands, the knees. I saw his waist. It's totally, obviously a human type thing, like a human. I just thought it was a little boy, and I actually called out to him. And I actually filmed this too, but the film is total garbage. You literally can't see anything, which is another reason why this all seems fake. And there are parts of things that seem like hoaxes, because I'm like, guys, look, I got this on camera, and I put it on YouTube, and there's like a little tiny black smudge going, and it's just nothing. It's nothing. I don't know why that is, because in real life, I saw this whole thing, man. I saw the whole darn thing, all the hair and all the stuff. The sun was glinting off of him just like it would on the back of any animal, like a black bear. It's glinting, kind of that honey gold color, just glinting off. And he was popping up and down, squatting too fast, way too fast. And he was also turning. What was he doing? So there was a wood pile that he was standing behind. It looked like a little structure that he had made, like a blind. And he was squatting up and down really fast behind that, popping over and looking at me. And then he had one of his hands up on one of the sticks. And he was squatting down all the way, completely, until his knees were completely pressed, until his legs were completely pressed. And then standing almost, well, not all the way back up, but standing with bended knees, almost all the way back up, looking at me. And while he was doing this, he was also flicking his head super fast backwards, like looking nervously at, maybe I interpret that as like looking at a parent, like looking at like, hey, mom, like, well, look, am I in trouble? Something like that. I don't know what he was looking at, but he was flicking his head backwards nervously and looking at me. Obviously, he was nervous. That's the whole thing. And guys, shh, hey, be nice. Please be nice. Oh no. Spilled Gatorade on the floor. Okay. Oh, I'm gonna have to cut the video. Okay, we just spilled Gatorade on the floor, but we cleaned it up. This is my son, Fox. He is almost 10 months old. So anyway, he was flicking his head backwards. He eventually turned and just ran, and he threw his arms out in front of him like if you were playing a game or you're, oh my gosh, like swimming, if you're like pretending to swim or something. His arms were straight when he ran. He flung his arms out in front of him. I just saw two of them and boom, he was gone. All of this took place. It was way too fast. It was way too fast. Now listen, there was black fur. It was jet black fur from what I could tell, all over his body, fuzzy like a little. He didn't look snuggly or anything because he was thin, but fuzzy fur that was like an inch and a half. Very nice looking coat, like just perfectly. And the sun was hitting it and glinting off his head, the side of his head and shoulder. He was silhouetted against the sky. He was standing behind this thing, but he was kind of up at the top of a little berm, and he was kind of silhouetted against the clouds or whatever. Anyway, it just worked out. It was a really good sighting. The point is that, there's no a possible way this would be a bear. I saw literally this. I saw him turn his head. I saw the profile, and he was behaving exactly like a human. The only reason that I know that it wasn't a hoax or like a little kid in a costume was simply, well, there was a couple of reasons. One of them was it was just moving way too fast for this reality. It was like, I'm not saying it was an interdimensional thing. I have no idea what it was, but like normal nature physics stuff that just doesn't move that fast. So there was some sort of weird overlap happening somehow. I don't know what that was about. And I didn't used to talk about this, but I want to talk about it now because I think people have started kind of accepting that there's more to this thing. So I want to talk about it. I always kept this part a secret publicly, but here you go. He was a physical thing. He was a physical thing. As far as I could tell, he was moving stuff, and he crashed through the woods, and there was all this noise when he crashed through the woods. And I think he grabbed my dog's tail, actually. He hurt. I think he hurt her tail actually at some point. She ran up there and she was okay. So here are the weird parts. The weird parts are this: my dog was playing with it, and I don't understand that. I couldn't see him at first. I'm assuming it's a him. I don't know. Maybe it's a girl. I couldn't see him, but she was jumping around it right there, and she was jumping up with something as if she was playing with, like she plays with me. And she's jumping around, and I could see her head popping up and her tail wagging and stuff. And then I saw something starting to move below the bushes, and then that's when I noticed this thing, and it popped up and just kept popping up, and the whole thing only lasted, honestly, maybe 3 seconds. 4 seconds? How long did it last? Jeez. I have it was very short. It was a short time. So that's an interesting encounter. It ran away, but the weird part, I still naturally want to leave this out. The weird part is that he kind of looked, he looked physical and real, but at the same time, he kind of almost looked like an ink blot. No, that's not even a good way of saying it. He almost looked like a, and mind you, he wasn't blurry or far away. This is Chris. I'm not saying he was blurry or it was like maybe shadows. No. This was absolutely just a real animal, real person type situation. He was only 30, 40 feet away. So it wasn't like, oh, the shadows in the trees were moving weird. No. This is totally true, totally full on real Sasquatch sighting, okay? It just didn't happen like I assumed it would. I assumed it would be some sort of physical creature that was just normal, like an ape, like a North American undiscovered ape that was just really smart or something. That's not at all like what he didn't look see-through. I wouldn't describe it as see-through, but it was more like looking through. I can't remember him being see-through at all, but maybe like a photo negative, like a maybe hold up a film, like a really dark glazy film, like an X-ray thing that they put that the doctors put up on those the lights on the walls. This X-ray, hold that up, like make a three-dimensional Sasquatch out of that or something. And then it was also real though too. So I have no idea. I have no. I do not have the reference to describe this any better. I don't have the ability to say what that was. Certainly wasn't a human. I know that, just because it wasn't. I mean, could have been a ghost, I guess, if you're into that. A Sasquatch ghost, Sasquatch ghost, that actually crashed through the woods and tipped over real stuff and broke real branches and maybe grabbed my dog, and my dog played with it. And it had to build a blind on the side of this old defunct road that I was on. I was on a crumbling road way up in the mountains, actually by a ski resort. I didn't know that way in the beginning. I didn't know the ski resort was there, and I'd hike up the long way. But there's a ski resort kind of near this place, and I was on this old crumbling road, and that's when I had the sighting. So, back to scientific evidence. Scientific evidence. This Sasquatch phenomenon, I guess, would be similar to ghosts, UFOs, alien abductions, NDEs, which all probably are things that really happened, at least in some way, because there's incredible eyewitness testimony from there's consistency across cultures on this, and that something's happening. Even if you think it's the government or something is certainly happening. But it's kind of like in that realm where, science really can't touch it because it just doesn't present as scientific evidence. It just doesn't present. Maybe science in the future will be able to expand a little bit about what they're able to perceive, and maybe there will be new types of evidence that aren't physical or forensic or empirical, but yet they're accepted by science. I don't know how that would happen, but as our consciousness grows as a species, we probably will be able to at one day comprehend this creature. But my opinion on Sasquatch is this. I went on Sasquatch Chronicles. I told Wes that I thought it was an ape. Sure, it could be an ape, but that's not really what it is. I mean, that's just one thing that it is. And that's what we are too, we're apes. It could be an alien or something, but I get the sense, and here's just my raw opinion on this, after looking into this for a couple of years. And I was never a big-time Bigfoot researcher or anything. I'm just I'm just an enthusiast, I guess. But I think that Sasquatch lives on this earth and is from this earth and is just in a different part of nature that we are not fully cognizant of. It seems to be an ultra-natural thing, not extraterrestrial, but ultra-terrestrial, like very, very, very much a part of nature, but also unnatural looking. It seems that it just kind of lives in a different kind of nature, a little bit further beyond the bounds of nature that we can see. Kind of like how we can't see outside the visible spectrum of light. Maybe our consciousness won't allow us, just because of our own, wherever we are right now with our maturity, maybe we are literally unable to perceive parts of nature because we just don't have that space yet in our brains or something. Who knows what's going on? But, the truth is, unfortunately, Sasquatch is just really weird like this. And it's, I wouldn't call it spiritual or religious or demonic or any of that crap. I think I'm not a religious person. I don't subscribe to religious ideals. I don't believe in a Judeo-Christian God. I believe in science. I believe in higher power and consciousness and love and intelligence in the universe and all sorts of life forms and beings I assume that there's a lot of them. But the point is, I'm not a religious person. And I try to be very, very logical with everything. But you also have to let room, if you're going to be like grasping onto science, you also have to make room that things can get weird sometimes and we're not able to perceive them. Right? I mean, if you have an experience, then isn't that what you should think about, your own experience? Now, you don't have to believe someone else's experience. You don't have to believe me that I've had this thing, and probably you shouldn't, because maybe I'm lying to you or something. You don't have to believe me about that. But when you research something, at least you should gain some kind of curiosity about it and say, okay, well, there's something strange that I don't understand and science doesn't understand. And let me just be honest about that much. And maybe it's still somehow a hoax, but I'm going to research a little bit further. I'm going to listen to a couple hundred more encounters, and I'm going to keep looking at this and thinking about it. It's okay. You shouldn't feel guilty for contemplating something just because it's on the fringe and seen as a stupid thing by society. Anyway, that's kind of how I feel about it. There's my Bigfoot video. I just wanted to share what I felt and thought about Sasquatch and kind of my own experience with it. That's just my raw opinion on that. All right, thanks guys. I'll see you. Bye.